Hey, what's up everyone, Matt here. So it's been almost a year that I've been using an electric longboard to get around and use for fun. The reason I got it in the first place was because where I live, it's close to shops and like grocery stores and stuff like that, but a lot of the times it's harder to drive there because the parking kind of sucks. So I figured with this, it'd be easier to get errands done, and it is. But sometimes for those really quick things, an electric longboard is kind of a process. The board is very big, it's heavy, you need the controller, your charger, a bag, a helmet. There's a lot of stuff you have to take with you. It's a little cumbersome. I know it's not really that big of a deal, but I was always thinking in the back of my head that there could be a better solution to this. Just something smaller that you just pick up and go. You don't really need that much more to take with you. But that is where this comes in. This is the Acton Blink S, and as you can tell, it's a small electric skateboard. The people over at Acton I think they read my mind and they decided to send this over, see what I thought about it, and after the almost month that I've been using it, it's a pretty solid board. So this board is about as close as you can get to a normal skateboard, but still have all the electric properties, which is cool because if you looked at it, you probably wouldn't notice that there was anything special about it until you realize no one's pushing. Now, the board itself is pretty simple. The deck is made out of maple and the battery underneath has an aluminum frame. You have 83mm wheels all the way around and you have one hub motor. You also get the controller and that's pretty much it. Now, the deck on this is very solid and there's pretty much no give to it. So when you stand on it, it's not going anywhere, there's no flex, and that could be, a good or bad thing. When you're going over bumps, you're going to feel every single one of them, but you also get that rigidity, so when you're doing things like taking turns, it's very solid. Now, as for specs, it has regenerative braking, it's splash resistant, it's rated to go 7 miles on a charge, up to 15 miles per hour while doing that 7 miles, and up a 15% grade. And to actually use the board, you use the controller. It's very simple. It runs off of 2 AAA batteries, and it would definitely be nice to see this rechargeable, but on the right, you have the on and off switch. On the left, you have the toggle for going forward and reverse, and in the middle, you push forward to go, and you pull back for the brake. So how does it ride? Well, you have a single hub motor. What that means is the motor is built into the wheel itself, and that leads to a very clean setup. If you glance at the board, you probably won't even notice the motor's there. It's a pretty powerful motor, so from a dead stop, it will start you and take you to full speed, but it's not exactly the quickest. So if you want to get up to speed faster and definitely more efficiently, I recommend that you push when you start off just to get the board going. Once you're actually rolling, the motor works really well. Now, because of that hub motor, it's also pretty quiet. You don't hear the board screaming down the road, and when you're not on throttle, it's almost silent. As far as ride quality, like I said, the board is pretty stiff, but it feels really controllable, and I never really had any issues. From the first time I started on the board, it felt solid. Now, to stop, this is one area that I don't really love. You pull back on the controller to activate the brake, but when you do that, it basically just stops the wheel. There's no real way to gradually induce the brake. It's either on or off, so you definitely have to be prepared for it. My bigger issue with it though is that it doesn't really bring you to a complete stop. It slows you down really well, but if you want to stop, you're gonna have to step off the board. Because of this, I can't really recommend riding this in traffic. If you need to slam on the brakes and stop, this board really isn't going to do that all that well. Now luckily, it doesn't really go so fast that you can't run off the board if something goes wrong. Like I said, it's very close to a regular skateboard, so if something goes really wrong, you can pretty much just bail and you'll be okay. But yeah, that's kind of my overall impression with this board. To me, it doesn't feel like a commuter's board. Like I wouldn't use this if I had to go really far, but it feels more like a regular skateboard. So if I wanted to go meet up with friends or go grab dinner down the street, I'd be able to take this and I wouldn't be all sweaty and disheveled when I get there, but at the same time, I didn't have to drive. So it gets me where I'm going, but in a more leisurely way. But that's not a bad thing. Another minor issue I have is there's no way to check the battery life on the board itself. To do that, you're going to need the app. Now you can download it for your iPhone and it's also available on Android, which is great. And in this app, you can control the different modes. So if you're just starting out, you can go slow, or if you want to go into pro mode, which is the full everything, and you can control the lights on or off if you don't want to use them. But this is the only place to see how much battery you have left, which can get a little bit annoying. But my biggest issue with this board isn't so much with the board, but the controller. This feels good in the hand and it's easy to use, but that's kind of where the compliments stop. Other than that, it feels like a cheap generic controller that you could just buy off the shelf. Now, that wouldn't necessarily be an issue if it worked really well, but it doesn't always. For instance, I've had a few occasions where the throttle sticks, so that's not a good feeling when you let go of the throttle, but it still keeps going. That's kind of scary. Also, I don't really understand why you have to flip a switch to go between forward and reverse. Why can't I just do that with the toggle? It feels like that would be a better brake. It would give me a lot more control so that I could actually stay in one place. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So with a better controller that gives me better control, I feel like all my issues will kind of go away. Everything else is kind of a nitpick and personal preference, but the controller is really important, and I really feel this needs an upgrade. Now there's one feature I haven't talked about yet, and it's probably my favorite feature of the board. It has lights! So there are 2 headlights in the front, you have lights along the side, and on the back you have a red taillight. These lights definitely make it easier to see you, which is one of my biggest worries when riding electric skateboards, is that people just don't notice you, but the lights definitely grab attention. And they just really look cool. So the big question, should you buy one? Well, it goes for $700, and that's not that expensive for an electric skateboard, but it's also certainly not cheap. But if what I've talked about in this review sounds like the perfect product to you, definitely pick one up. It's a ton of fun. But anyways, that is the Acton Blink S, and you know, it does have some issues, but there is a Blink S2, and maybe it fixes some of those issues, so be sure to let me know down below in the comments if you want me to check that one out too. I want to thank Acton for sending this out, and if you want to pick one of these up, link will be down in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe. And I want to thank you all so much for watching. Again, my name is Matt, and I'll see you next time.